it's Monica from Life is Art, and this is the December 11th, it's Wednesday, Let's Create Live, and we are going to be creating a bridge card this evening. And if you notice when you clicked on in that I'm calling it, It Takes a Village. And that's because we're going to be using one of my favorite stamp sets that we have for this season, and that is the Yuletide Village stamp set. And I have been having oodles of fun creating with it, and I know some of you have as well. So I wanted to do another project or two with it. And so this is Yuletide Village, and we're going to be creating a bridge card. We're also going to be using the Season of Green and Gold for some of our pattern papers today, our designer series paper. If you're joining me live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. And if you're watching later on replay, you can just drop a message and say hi and let us know that you were stopping in. I see Laura's here. Good evening, Laura. And I also wanted to mention that today, the 11th, is the last day of the free shipping offer that's been going on since Monday. So if you have been thinking you wanted to put an order in, today's the day to do that. So check that out. All right, let's get started. We're going to start out with a piece of Pecan Pie cardstock, because that looks super pretty with the Season of Green and Gold collection. So this piece is 8 inches by 4 1/4. So 8 inches long and 4 1/4 high. And we're going to do some scoring. So I'm just going to grab my Simply Scored here. I always got to move my chair back a little bit because it hangs over the edge of my table. I just want to make sure we get it all in. And we're going to be doing some scoring along the 8-inch side. If you've ever made a bridge card before, you know that it just takes a few score lines and that's it. It's not a hard, I know some people have different definitions of a fun fold versus a fancy fold. Ones that aren't too difficult, they're just kind of a regular card base, just folded a little different. I always think of those as fun folds because they're not too hard. And the harder they are, the more times I think that's more of a fancy fold. So maybe let me know what your definition of a fun fold versus a fancy fold is. So along the 8-inch side, we're going to score first at 1 1/4. So 1 1/4. And then at 2 1/2. And now you have two options. You can either turn your card around 180 degrees and do the exact same thing, or you can jump over here and you can score it at 5 1/2, and then at 6 3/4. So if you only want to remember two measurements, then just go with the 1 1/4, 2 1/2, and then just turn your card base around and do the exact same thing. But if you like to keep it in one spot, then you have to remember two other measurements. Now, if you didn't write those down while I did them, don't worry. When I post the photos, I will also post the dimensions, which just to let you know, I may not get done right as soon as the video is done tonight, because when the video is done tonight, today has been one of those days. I had to do a lot of driving, and I still have 2 more trips to make tonight. And so it may be much later on tonight when everything gets posted. Hey, Heather, nice to see you're watching. So we've got our 4 score lines there. And we have a larger space in the center. It's about a 3-inch space. And so the 2 score lines that are on either side of that 3-inch space, we're going to fold those first. And we're going to fold them towards that 3-inch space in the center, and then crease them down. So we're doing the first line on either side of the large space in the center. Okay. And once we have those 2 folded, all we're going to do is we're going to close the left one, and then we're going to fold on this other crease line back on itself. You're just making like an accordion fold, right? So now it goes or a Z fold. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We've already creased that first line to the right of the large space. And now this last one, we're just going to fold back on itself. And that creates the base for our bridge fold. That is all the creasing and scoring we need to do. So now when it stands up, it looks like that. Okay? And then we're going to bring in a second piece of paper. We're not going to stick it on yet, but I'm going to tell you about it. A second piece of paper, and this is also Pecan Pie, and it has been cut to 5.5 by 1 inch. This is going to be the bridge on our bridge card. That's why it's called a bridge card, because now if you look like that, it looks like there's a little river running through there, and that's the bridge to get across. Okay? This is bridging the gap. All right, and every village needs a bridge, right? You know, those nice little picturesque villages. I'm going to set this aside for a minute because we're going to do some decorating on here because it's a lot easier to do the decorating before we get everything on there, right? Okay, let's start out with this center space. So in this center space, we're going to have a piece of basic white cardstock, and it has been cut to 2 3/4 by 4 inches. And we're going to do some stamping right on this. Now, let me just get myself situated here. I've got my Tuxedo Black Memento ink. And you know that means we're going to do a smidgen of coloring. I've got the 2 houses that are attached. There's a bunch of little houses, and these are the 2 that are attached. And what I want to do is I want to actually stamp this about 1.5 inches up from the bottom. Right about there, and a little bit off to this side. Like that. Easy peasy. Lemon squeezy. It's nice when you can do it easy and do it right on the card base. And, well, on a piece of paper that's going on the card base. And then I also need a piece of paper. Let me grab one from my stash of scrap papers here. We're going to also stamp, I'm just going to grab another one that's the same size as that one. We're also going to stamp this little church. So we're going to ink it up. And I'm not going to be particular about where I'm stamping it. I'm just going to go ahead and stamp it on there. We're also going to need a couple of these little trees, these little evergreen trees, because we want to create a little bit of scenery. These ones are going to get fussy cut. So it doesn't matter where on there I stamp them, I just need to stamp them. Alrighty. Now let's do some coloring again. As I always say, I'm going to keep my colors to a minimum, and I'm going to stick with 3 colors. I've got the light Pecan Pie Stampin' Blend. I have the light Real Red Stampin' Blend. And I have the light shaded Spruce Stampin' Blend. So the shaded Spruce, I'm going to use that to color my trees. And these little trees actually have some parts on them that look like they could be snow covered. I think that's what they were going for. So what we're going to do is we're going to color them to allow for that. And it doesn't take long to color these little trees. They're super cute. We're just going to color both of those up. But because of the magic of Facebook, I actually only need to color one of them. And we'll color all this bottom bit with the shaded Spruce. Now the shaded Spruce is not, is it? Or is it not? I was going to say it's not one of the colors in the Season of Green and Gold, but let me just double check that. No, it's not. There's Garden Green, Mossy Meadow, and Old Olive in there, but I don't have, well, I guess I have Mossy Meadow, but I don't have the other colors in the Stampin' Blends. So the shaded Spruce is close enough. right? So you just go with what's close enough. I always say, use what you have. Okay, now I'm also going to add a little bit of green on this house here. And I'm going to keep my coloring to a minimum as well. I'm keeping my colors to a minimum and my coloring to a minimum. Because I think these houses look pretty cute as they are. And so I'm just adding a little bit to the trim on the house. And maybe I'll color the door. So I did the windowsills, the chimney, the trim. I'm just going to leave it like that. It doesn't have to be super over the top with the coloring, right? Oops, I forgot. We've got some greenery over here too. We've got a little tree with our church. Let's color that up. And I'm using the brush tip, just right on the end of the brush tip. There we go. And then also the little wreath. We're just going to kind of dot, dot, dot our way around that wreath. Super pretty. All right. And then with our pecan pie, just going to test it on that one. It's okay to test on there because we're cutting that one out. Let's make this little house have some pecan pie trim. And I've done projects before doing this same kind of coloring with this same stamp set. So this is nothing new for you. It's just another way to look at it, right? Another use for it. Let's also do some on our church. With the pecan pie, we're going to do the roof and a little bit of the trim. Like that. Down the other side. And I find you really have to use just the very pointiest tip of the brush tip to get in those fine details. This really doesn't take too long to color because it's such a tiny, tiny space. Let's also do the door. Why not? There we go. And I'm going to leave the step as it is there. I'm not doing any shading on this one. And then with the real red, we're going to come in and add a little bit of red on our bow there. And this bow here. And there we go. That was super simple. That even wasn't hardly anything. All right, let's leave this one because we don't need to cut it out. But let's rough cut out our church here to start. And then let's fussy cut it. So we're going to come in from the side. And we're going to go up and around. We're going to leave a halo of the white background showing. And I think you've seen me fussy cut this church before. So not a lot to see there, but pivot your paper. Cut to the edge. And then come back in. And all the way around. And cut down here by the tree. And then come back up. Around and around. Yes, so I was doing a lot of driving today. Took my daughter to school and came home. Took my husband to work and came home. Took my son to school and came home. Took my other son to his appointment at the hospital and came home. And then did everything in reverse. Picked up my daughter from school, picked up my son from school. And then I had to take my kids to cadets. They have drill and band practice tonight. And then I have to pick them up at 8 o'clock. And then I have to go get my husband from work because he'll be super excited to leave work by 9 o'clock. All right, so there we go. We've got those done. Now let's scooch them over to the side because we need to add some decoration to this. So our piece that's going in the center, we're going to add it onto a piece of garden green cardstock, which, as you heard from my rambling list of things that are coordinating colors, garden green is one of them. And this piece of garden green has been cut just a smidgen bigger than this white. And so it is 2 7/8 by 4 1/8. And I know some of you love those eighths, but sometimes they're just necessary to get that little bit of color that we want rimming our stamped area. So this is going to get centered in that large panel. There we go. Sorry, turning it sideways so I can see it better. And then Facebook magic. We've got our little tree that we cut out, so that's going to get added here. Do I want to add foam tape? Nah, I'm going to put this one flat. Just adding adhesive. Sorry, I'm way down at the bottom of your screen doing that. Just tuck that right there, like that. And then we're going to add a little bit of decoration to the sides. And for that, I've pulled out some of the silver. Season. That's the word I'm looking for. Season of green and gold. And of course, it's got that beautiful gold foiling just for a fun accent. Beautiful little bit of foliage, which I thought would work well with our little tree. Just going to go ahead and add some adhesive to these. Take the backing off. I suppose it would be good if I told you what size these were. These are 1 1/8 by 4 1/8. Yes, yes, more of those eighths. And we're going to center that in here. And this section isn't going to have any cardstock as a second layer. I don't think it's necessary to have it all the time. Pardon me, my throat's gone horribly dry. And we're going to center that one on either side. Woo! And then for our outside, I'm switching it up again. And we're going to use some of this season of green and gold. And this is sort of a creamy background with some gold foiled diamonds all over it. And we're going to layer it up on top of some garden green cardstock to pull that same feeling out from the center. So the cardstock is 1 1/8 by 4 1/8. And then the designer series paper is 1 inch by 4 inches. So let's go ahead and add our adhesive on there. This kind of card is a great card to make when you've gone and done another project and you've got little strips of paper left. It's nice when you can create a card to use those strips that doesn't look like you just used a bunch of scrap paper, right? It's designed in such a way that you have to use little strips of paper. And so then it doesn't look like leftovers. Have you ever had a meal and you're like, this is totally leftovers what we're eating right here, because it's, you just took what you had left and you threw it in a frying pan and made hash out of it. And it's leftovers. Still tastes great. But sometimes you can take your leftovers and kind of remake them so it looks like, ooh, we made something nice for dinner. Not that leftovers aren't nice. I will take leftovers any day. But you know what I'm saying? It doesn't look like you intentionally are trying to use scraps. It's just ideal for using little bits and pieces. That's all I'm saying. So these are going to get centered on these outside sections of our bridge card. And get the backings off. I'm doing about half and half here. Half the time I remember to put it in my trash can, and half the time I don't. Half the time I'm putting it on my table here for me to throw away later, and the other half of the time I remember and actually reach the exact same distance, but just over that way, and put it in my trash can. Sometimes we can just get a habit going, it would be great, right? So now you can see we now have a fun amount of pattern going on there. I think it just looks super pretty that way. And then let's add in our bridge. So we've got our strip of paper that I showed you before that's 5.5 by 1 inch. And this is going to be going across here from side to side like that. I want to lift it up a little bit from the bottom, maybe, do I want 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch? I think 1/4 inch up from the bottom. And we want to add our little church on here, but we also need to add a little bit of something else on here. So I'm going to grab a piece of paper because I didn't cut it yet. Grab some basic white. I've got some scraps here, and that will work perfectly because I need 5 3/8 by 7/8. Let me grab my little trimmer. So we want 7/8. 7/8. And I can't do 5 3/8 on this one because it's too small. Gotta grab the big trimmer. Or I could just use my scissors and guess, but we'll use the big trimmer. So we said 5 3/8. My big trimmer is enormous. It takes up a lot of space. Now before we get this stuck on everything, I want to stamp our sentiment on here. So I want to kind of get an eyeball of how everything's going to line up like this. And our little church is going to go on here like that. Scooch it over a little bit. So we've got about half the space on the left hand side to stamp our sentiment. And so for our sentiment, I need to grab a different stamp set because the Yuletide Village does not have sentiments. So I have here the Peaceful Season, my go-to this Christmas for all my crafting. Hey, Heather. And let me see. I really like the Love from Our Home to Yours. I think that's really pretty. Peace and Joy is also very nice. I've also been loving A Season of Wonder and Happiness. Love and Joy to You. Bum, bum, bum. I think I'm going to go with The Season of Wonder and Happiness because it just sounds lovely, doesn't it? And I think our little village just shows a nice little season. And what's that sentiment? It takes a village. Now, I'm just trying to decide, do I want to stamp it in green, brown, red, black? Could always do red as sort of a contrasty color, but I don't know. Let me know quickly in the comments. Should we do green, pecan pie, real red, or black? Green, brown, red, or black? Do 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 do. As you think about what you want to type, I'm also going to grab some embellishments for our card. Let me see. Going to go with these ones. How's it going? Have you made a decision? Laura says red. First one's the winner, chicken dinner. We're going with red. And we use the real red for our little bows. So we're going to use that for our sentiment. And, oh, it'd help if I put it the right way up. Let's ink this up. Make sure we get it all inky. And then stamp it on there. A season of wonder and happiness. Beautiful. Let's add this to our strip, our bridge. Like so. Now the edges of our, the outside sections of our card are 1.25 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to use my mat to help me with this. I'm going to add some adhesive just on the outside inch. Like that. And that way I know I'm not going to have adhesive where it doesn't belong. I could go all the way to 1.25 inches, but we're going to stick to the outside inch like that. Take this off. Why not do both sides at the same time and live on the edge? Alrighty, so what we're going to do, we're going to make sure that our right-hand side is out flat. We're going to take our left-hand side and we're going to fold it in like the accordion that it is. We're going to line ourselves up on the mat here, and we're going to come up, what did we say, about 1/4 inch? 1/4 inch from the bottom. Line ourselves up and stick it on down. And because we pushed this all the way out and we tucked this one all the way in, we were able to put that bridge on super flat so that it's just perfectly from side to side, and it can bend either way because that's what's going to get it into an envelope. This card ends up being 5.5 by 4.25, so it fits in the standard size envelope, which is awesome. Now, what you ask, are we doing with our little church? We're going to stick it on here, but we're also going to add in, remember we did 2 little trees, and we're going to add one of those little trees just kind of tucked in behind. So let's add a little bit of adhesive on it. Like that. You can even fold it. My take your pick tool is just rolling around like a crazy thing. We're going to stick that right here, and it can stick all the way up there because there's nothing hanging over. But this one, we need to just add adhesive where it's going to fit. I'm going to just trim off a little bit of this end. I got a little generous with my fussy cutting there, and that's going to allow me to tuck it over a little bit. And so we're going to add some dimensionals on the back of this. I'm going to try to add some dimensionals. They're sitting over there, hanging out. We're going to add these, but I'm only going to add them along the bottom a little bit because otherwise they're going to stick up above. They're going to stick up above our bridge. We don't want that. I'm just going to add a little bit of a skinny one. Just to add a little bit more. Just tuck it right in there. There we go. Take all our backings off. Grab my tweezers. That way I can see what I'm doing. And then we can tuck that right in there like that. That is so cute. We've also got some bling here. And I want to add a little bit of bling in the background. I'm just trying to decide which one of these I want to use. Whether I want the really light ones or the slightly darker ones. Or I could go for green, but I think maybe I do want to go for green just for that little bit of contrast. So let's grab one of these big ones here and we'll stick it there. And then there with a littler one. And there. To add some, a little bit of decoration around our little house there. And then maybe we'll add a little bit at the front as well. So we'll add we're going to add there. And there. And another big one. We're going to add 2 there. Here we go. We use 6. It's not an odd number, but they are in sort of triangles. This one's a really long triangle. All right, so there we have our Season of Wonder and Happiness. It Takes a Village bridge card using that gorgeous designer series paper from the Season of Green and Gold. We have we've added our bridge across there. We started it with Pecan Pie, adding in little touches of the garden green and then pulling that into our greenery and our houses and just simple coloring on there. And I think that is super cute. It takes a village. How fun is that? And of course it folds nice and flat to go into an envelope. Now to add the writing onto the back of your card, you're going to need a piece of cardstock as well. You'll want to cut it about the same size as the green. If you want, you can do green and white. I'm going to put the measurements in, but I won't stick it on just yet because I didn't cut it. And yeah, that is our completed card. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing that little village come together. I hope you feel inspired to make a bridge card of your own. Look through your stamp sets and see what you can create to create a nice little scene from a bridge card. All right, have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you again soon. I'm off to do Mom's taxi duties again. Toodaloo. Bye.